I'm trying to have the kind of summer Conor McGregor's dick is having. That thing is out everywhere. Hello, and welcome to the Sports Bimbo podcast. I'm your host, Stella K. I literally, just this second, just got finished reading A Man for Filth. Just went full apeshit on the fish, if you must know. And I feel great. I feel so much better. I feel like I've been holding all that in. Don't pretend to be the chill girl, ladies. Be crazy. Scare them. They need to be scared. If men want to talk to someone who's logical and not emotional and rational, they should fuck men. Enough about me for now. I'll get back to myself at the end like I always do. But let's talk about combat sports. I took it to Twitter, x.com. I asked people to write in with their most stupidest, most embarrassing, most bimbo combat sports questions that they might be too scared to ask. But no judgment. I don't want anyone to feel judged. It's not for me to laugh at you or for anyone to laugh at you. I really wanted to know because I know there's probably questions out there that people are scared to ask because they don't know if it sounds dumb. And since this is sports bimbo, it could never sound dumb to us or me. There's stuff I want to bring a betting expert on here and really break it down to me because there's a lot of stuff about sports betting that I don't understand. I don't think there's no shame in it. People on the internet make it so intimidating if you're not an encyclopedia of knowledge. And some of the questions that people don't know, it is really basic and really funny. Which reminds me, when I had my combat sports job, my previous job, I was doing a man on the streets thing at a Jaime Munguia fight at the Honda Center where I go up to boxing fans. People are there to see the boxing fights who presumably they know about boxing. And I was asking them stupid questions, honestly, stuff that I thought everyone would know. That was the whole point. I was in the parking lot at this big boxing fight asking people to fill in the blank. And I was saying, float like a butterfly. You guys know the rest. I know you do. And you would be surprised how many people didn't know the answer. I don't know if it's because they were on the spot or what, but it was hilarious, For those of you that don't know, because apparently there are people who don't know, it's the Muhammad Ali quote, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Very famous boxing quote. I thought everybody knew that, but people didn't. Even older people, men, there was a lot of people that didn't know it. I was getting the funniest answers. I wish I could remember what they were, but they were crazy. Float like a butterfly, sting like an ant, or just very bizarre. So things like that led me to realize that, there's a lot of people that don't know as much as we think they know. So let's help them out without any judgment. The first question I got on my Combat for Bimbos Q&A, that's what we're going to call it, Combat for Bimbos. The first question was, what's the difference between boxing and MMA? I think that's a fair question. And the girl who asked it, and I will not ever reveal the names of who asks these because I don't want anyone to feel shamed. The girl who asked it had a LOL and embarrassed emojis or something afterwards. I could tell she was embarrassed to ask, but I'm so thankful that she asked and gave me the opportunity to explain this because not everyone knows. How would you know? So the difference between MMA and boxing is a few things. The gloves, the ring, the one discipline versus many. There's a lot of differences, but basically, let's start with the gloves. Boxing is a full traditional glove, what you see behind me. And for my audio listeners, I have an LED light of, the round looking boxing gloves that you would see everywhere, every boxing fight that covers your entire wrist and hands. That is a traditional boxing glove. And they come in different sizes, 12 ounces, 10 ounces. That's more complicated. Some of them lace up, some of them don't. But it's a full cover. That's the most important thing. So that was a traditional boxing glove. In MMA, the gloves, the fingers are out. So you're striking. It's not bare knuckle. That's a whole nother thing. That's self-explanatory, bare knuckle. That's no gloves at all. But MMA, you're using gloves with your fingers out. So you're not bare knuckle, but you're still striking. And so I'm going to be holding my cat now. I have a pink Sphinx cat, and her name is Mew, like the Pokemon. Literally exactly what she looks like. Also, my audio listeners, if you want to know what I look like today, I look like little GTA hooker on the farm. Pigtails with pink bows and a pink lace top, but it's kind of thoughty. More thoughtier than usual, but it's because I'm really hot. Back to Combat for Bimbos and the difference between boxing and MMA. So also there's a difference in the ring. The boxing ring is like the four sides that you see that looks kind of like a wrestling ring. It's a square, it has ropes. Whereas in MMA, it's a cage. And in UFC specifically, it's an octagon. So that means it has 8 sides. And the octagon is actually invented for the UFC specifically for their like parent company, Zuffa LLC. It was invented specifically for them to keep fighters from getting trapped in the corners because of the way that those fights go, that you're mixing wrestling with boxing and jiu-jitsu and judo and all those sorts of things. So when you're pressing someone against the cage and there's only a limited amount of corners, they can get stuck there. But having the 8 gives them more opportunity to kind of roll around. But the UFC did actually start licensing it to other MMA promotions. So there are other MMA promotions who use the octagon, but it is copyrighted, patented, all those things by UFC technically. They own the rights to the octagon. So if other MMA promotions are using it, that means that they pay the UFC for that right. Otherwise, they will be in a cage, which is not a ring, it's a cage, like think a fence, that sort of thing. So the octagon was invented in the 90s for UFC. And UFC, really popularized mixed martial arts. And like I talked about in, I think, the first episode of Sports Bimbo, it was because they wanted to create Mortal Kombat, the video game, in real life. But UFC did not invent mixed martial arts. There are earlier forms of this sport that existed, like Shudo in Japan, but they were in a traditional 4-sided ring, one that looked like a boxing or a wrestling ring. So that really complicated things. But MMA, as we know it, really was developed and evolved and popularized by UFC, but there were other promotions before it. But the octagon is unique to UFC and now MMA. So that is a big difference, what they're fighting inside of. A square, which is a ring, or the octagon or the cage, that's MMA. So one discipline versus many. So boxing, traditional boxing, you're just hitting each other, punching, right? Jabs, uppercuts, hooks. It's just all hitting. There's leg work, but you can't kick, nothing like that. You're only using your upper body to hit each other's upper bodies, essentially. Whereas MMA, you're mixing so many disciplines, wrestling on the ground, striking, boxing, hitting each other, all those kind of jabs and all that. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and different fighters are different disciplines first. Not all of them are versed in every form of fighting, but there's many different styles of fighting that are incorporated into mixed martial arts. That's one of the things that makes it so exciting, because some people are really good grapplers, some people are really good boxers, and then it's kind of cool to see how's it going to work out when, this person is really good on the ground and this person's really good standing up. Whereas boxing, it's going to be all standing up. I hope that helps. Whoever you are, whoever asked that, and anyone else who may not understand the difference between boxing and MMA. And I hope that that makes sense, and I hope that I explained it simple enough. So MMA, UFC is MMA, but UFC is not the style of fighting. That is the name of the promotion. So it's just kind of like calling all wrestling WWE. So when I'm talking about UFC, it's specifically that promotion because that is my favorite MMA promotion. But there's tons of MMA promotions. There's PFL, there's Bellator, there's all sorts of smaller ones, bigger ones. But UFC is the biggest one, the main one, and my favorite. Another combat for bimbos question that I was asked: why do they call it a boxing ring if it's not round? And why is the cage an octagon? Also, I apologize if my voice is different and a little scratchy. I still haven't fully recovered from my sickness and irritating vocal fry ASMR. I'm so sorry. Before I go on to the ring, being called the ring and the octagon, let me just backtrack for a second to the difference between boxing and MMA. There's also a difference in the number of rounds. Generally, UFC fights are going to be 3 rounds or 5 if it's a main event. Whereas boxing, it's all like sanctioned and negotiated beforehand when the fighters agree to a fight, but it can be very many rounds, 10 rounds, 12 rounds. Yeah, so traditional boxing, it can be sanctioned for anywhere from 9 to 12 rounds, whereas MMA, I believe, is generally 3 to 5. Okay, it seems to be similar for most promotions, 3 rounds of 5 minutes per round with a 1-minute break in between rounds. Okay, on to my second question for combat for bimbos. Why do they call it a boxing ring if it's not round? So that one, the early days of boxing, which boxing actually began in like the 1700s. It is such an old sport, especially if you compare it to MMA. So you can kind of put that in the last question of the difference between boxing and MMA. Boxing started in the 1700s. MMA started in like pre-UFC. The other promotions I was talking about, I think the earliest one is like 1985, whereas the MMA that we know today is 1994, I believe. So that is a huge difference. 1700s versus the 80s and 90s. MMA is a very new sport relatively compared to this historical sport from the 1700s that really got legs in like the 1800s and was just like the biggest thing. Boxing, you need to catch up a little bit with have a little renaissance because you're falling behind. MMA is the fastest growing sport in the world right now. And to be that historical that long, you need to let's spruce it up, boxing. Let's make it more interesting. Look, the ADHD, I lost my train of thought. I started talking about the 1700s and I forgot to answer the goddamn question. Okay, so when it started in the 1700s, there was no ring at all, no square. It was literally a circle that they would draw on the floor, like with chalk or paint, just a big circle. And then the two guys get in there. And then people would crowd around the hand-drawn circle. So that is where it started being called a boxing ring and where the term ringside, like when people say I had ringside seats, that's them standing around this hand-drawn ring. That's why it's all called ring. But it's evolved to be a square, and then that is why we hear the terms like the squared circle. I got a question. Why is the cage called an octagon? So I think I explained that in the first Combat for Bimbos question. So there are cages, and that is not technically the octagon. The octagon is the octagon. MMA fighters do fight in a cage, but it's not always an octagon, though it is oftentimes an octagon. Somebody asked, what is jump the gilly? I see that a lot on X, and I'm afraid to ask what that means. So jump the gilly, that is jumping the gilly, which is popularized by Dustin Poirier. I don't know if people were saying that beforehand. Sorry, my knowledge doesn't go back that far. But it's just shorthand for jumping into a guillotine choke. So that's a submission hold that comes from judo, if you don't know what it is. I'm sure you've heard of a rear naked choke where you're behind someone and you kind of use your arms as the blades, right? To like a guillotine, to choke off someone's air supply. So the difference between the rear naked and the guillotine, also there's some controversy on how to say that. A lot of people say guillotine, but if it's a French word, so it's guillotine. So I'm gonna go with guillotine, but you will hear people saying guillotine, guillotine. So the difference between the rear naked choke and the guillotine is that it's basically a front naked choke. So you're in front of the person using your arms like a guillotine, cut off their air supply. So jumping the gilly is just jumping right into that. And that's something that Dustin Poirier does. So that is jump the gilly. If you see that, that's what that means. It's just exactly that, jumping into a guillotine choke. All right. That concludes the Combat for Bimbos questions for today. But I love the questions, and I don't think they're stupid. I don't think it's funny when I see them. I think, hey, that's valid. Like, how do you know that? If you don't ask, if someone doesn't tell you, keep them coming. Tweet them to me. Send them on the Bimbo hotline, 1-844-MMA-BIMB, 1-844-MMA-BIMB, and I'll answer them. If you don't want your voice, you can tweet them, DM them. But yeah, Combat for Bimbos. Ask me anything. No stupid questions. We are back at the Apex this weekend for fight night, which I saw some people were sad about, like, oh no, we're back at the Apex, the small, boring Apex where the crowd sucks. I don't know. I don't feel that. I like when shows are at the Apex. I don't know why. I feel like because it's closer to me, I know that it's in Las Vegas and that I could potentially go because I live in Los Angeles. I like when it feels close, when it's like, even though I don't go, it's just the concept that maybe I could. Whereas when they're in like Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia or, somewhere across the country, I'm like, oh man, I can't decide to go to that this weekend. I really want to go to UFC Paris. Can you imagine? I feel like that would be so good for me. So yeah, we're back at the Apex this weekend for another women's main event. And I know I harped on everyone last week where I was like, I'm sick of you guys talking shit about a women's main event. But now I'm the asshole. I'm like, all right, that's enough. That's enough back-to-back women's main event. Last week was really good, but I'm just not excited about this weekend's card. Maybe I'm too much of a casual. I don't know. But Tracy Cortez was originally supposed to fight Miranda Maverick, I think on the prelims. not even on the main card, but she was needed short notice as the replacement for Macy Barber when she pulled out of the fight with Rose Namajunas. So obviously that's not happening. That would have been a fight I would have looked forward to, but I mean, that was way better for everyone. For Tracy, it was a good main event. We'll get into that later. But this to me just feels like one of those like random cards where there's not really anyone that I'm invested in. There's a couple wacky fights in my opinion. But sometimes those fights end up being the ones that are really good. Like, do you guys remember, I want to say a few weeks, maybe even a couple months back, there was that really heavy Brazilian card for fight night, and it ended up being really good. So yeah, those random cards end up having bangers sometimes when I say stuff like this. So, I know deep in my heart I'm probably going to be wrong because I'm still going to watch it and it's still probably going to be great. It's MMA. You never know what's going to happen in MMA, so I can't predict what's going to surprise me. You never know who's going to put on a master class. You don't know who's going to flop. There's been people that I was really looking forward to in big fights and it was boring, complete flops. And then there's people that you underestimated that just kill it. So I will be watching. We'll see. I'm not excited about it in advance. That's the honest truth. I'm a little bit of a hater of this card, but I do know that there will be good fights. I just don't know which ones. I'm not invested in the main event, truthfully. We got a messy heavyweight bout on the prelims. Muhammad Usman versus Thomas Peterson, where neither guy's very good. Like, these are not good fighters. I love heavyweights. These are not good heavyweights to me. So I don't really want to see them. Thomas is ranked like number 71 in MMA or something, I think. And the funny thing is he dead ass, like, I'm serious. Look at his face. I'll put it in the video version of this. He looks like a white Tai Tuivasa to me, which is really funny. So, I don't need to see the white lower ranked Bam Bam fight. I want to see the real Bam Bam get back on his winning streak. Speaking of Bam Bam, you guys stop being mean to that man. I know he's been on a little bit of like a downward slide. Before that, he was so good, on the up and up, few back-to-back losses, but his comment section is like relentless. You guys are awful. Like, leave him alone. Y'all know go watch the history of his fights. That is a good fighter. He's had a few bad fights. You think he doesn't know that? Leave him alone. Like, he's coming to win. I have all my faith in him for this next fight. He'll post like something motivational, something about his life. It could be anything. And people will be in the comments like, how about you start winning? Like, shut the fuck up. Like, it'll be a picture of his kid or something, and people will be like, stop posting pictures of your kids and go train so you can actually win this time. Shut the fuck up. I was responding to people in the comments like his defense attorney. It was pissing me off. Well, I like Bam Bam. I think we know that. But yeah, don't piss me off. Don't be mean to that man. He doesn't deserve it. There's way worse fighters. You get in there. Let's see how many times you win. I get saying that you want him to win, but there's like a time and a place. I said it on this podcast. I'm not going to go say that. Comments about unrelated shit. If he wants to know what you think, he'll fucking ask you. Then we have fights like the featherweight bout on the main card, which is Doo-Ho Choi versus Bill Algeo. Now, Doo-Ho, I've been hearing people say Doo-Ho Choi or Choi Doo-Ho. I think Doo-Ho. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Doo-Ho, which that's my nickname. But I believe it's Doo-Ho Choi. This guy has not won an MMA fight in 8 years. 8. That's a lot of years. There was a time where people were really excited about him and wanted to see what he could do, but 8 years, that is many years. So, I mean, he's older now. That's not good. Maybe he'll surprise us. Maybe he'll be one of the wild cards that I was talking about, but that's not sounding great to me. The women's fights are the most interesting ones on this card, to be honest. They really, really are. If you go look at the full card, I'm not going to break down the entire card here, but I don't have anything bad to say about most of the women's fights. Just that I'm not super, like, I'm not as invested in this main event as I was in the last one. And that's probably due to marketability, if I'm being completely honest, because they're good fighters and I just don't find myself caring as much. We need to do better PR run with these girls. But the girls on this card are the better fighters, better matchups. But those are kind of two silly ones that I wanted to talk about just as a hater. But I will be watching, and I'm sure I'll be wrong somehow. We'll see. Let's take it back to last weekend's fights at UFC Denver. I had a lot of fun watching these fights. So Rose won by decision, exactly like I said she would. Yay, me! The sports bimbo knows what she's talking about sometimes. I feel like it happened mostly like I said it would. Tracy put on a really good fight. Although I didn't see as much wrestling as I thought I would. Tracy didn't really get Rose on the ground, but I wasn't for sure she would anyway. But Tracy Cortez held her own. And keep in mind, this was a short notice. She's nowhere as good as Rose, just like I said. She's not like substantially not as good. She's just like obviously not as good, but it wasn't like she held her own. I'll just say that. Tracy Cortez held her own against Rose Namajunas. In this fight, Rose knocked her down 2 minutes into the fight, and I believe that is when the eyelash went flying. And if you didn't watch, if you didn't know, the clip is everywhere. It's viral. Rose hits Tracy, and she's wearing a strip false eyelash, and it just flies across the octagon. You can just fully see it.
Right on the jaw. Sits Cortez down, right hand barely even lands.
Knocked an eyelash off.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she had to chop some.
And there's so many like playback clips of it. It's so funny. It was just laying there. I couldn't keep my eyes off of it. It was just randomly in the octagon, a false strip eyelash. And I heard reporters asking Rose in her post-fight interview, did you see the eyelash fly? She said she didn't see it, but she said that's funny. And she was like, that's crazy that she wears eyelashes, which it is kind of crazy. And I'm a glam girl. I have to look good. And I know that if I was a UFC fighter, it'd be very important for me to make sure that I look good, that my hair is on point, that my outfit, even though it's a little uniform, like is just right. I would wear makeup. There's no way I'm going out completely barefoot. I would have something, even if I had to have it tattooed on. But what I would not do is wear a false strip lash. I just wouldn't. You have to know something like that could happen. How do you expect that thing to stay on? I would have at least had a lash extension. Or not at all. Curl them things. Get a lash lift. Get a lash tint. But a false strip lash, that's crazy. I don't even know what that means. I did see a lot of people making fun of her, like, oh, you're not serious about fighting. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I am the type of person that I will find a way to make anything I do aesthetic, whether I'm boxing or doing a sports podcast or, doing Playboy. But I get it. I get the commitment to aesthetic, but I wear makeup to the gym. I wore lashes to the gym, but there's just false strip lash glued on. That's crazy, hair extensions, certain things just don't make sense in that octagon. And that is one of them. But she looked great for, the few minutes it was on. At the end of the day, you're going to look like shit by the end of the fight. You might as well thug it out like Thug Rose. That's how you can tell, honestly, that Rose Namajunas' priority really is fighting, because I said it before, she is a pretty girl. She is a cute girl, but that's just not her focus. And I think that's sick. That couldn't be me, because I would have to care how I look. I'm just not that secure to come out there with no makeup, buzzed head, but she's still beautiful. But it just really shows what her priority is. And, Tracy has other priorities, but that doesn't mean that fighting isn't one of them. Tracy did get a knockdown in the second round, but Rose got up so fast and handed it right back to her. I think she knocked her right back down. But, good for Tracy. She did get a knockdown. Something that I was really impressed by was Rose's head movement in that fight. She was like, the boxer in me was so impressed. She was just ducking out of every strike. I mean, Tracy landed a decent amount of strikes, but the head movement was sick. Like, she was full like Matrix mode, just like ducking everything. And Tracy tried so hard. God bless her. You could see her really giving her all, but just not quite getting it. And I saw Rose actually got tired in the last 10 seconds, but it was just too late by then. She got the decision win. Tracy would have had to knock her out, and it just didn't look like that was happening. And if you guys saw, or if you didn't, Tracy tried to pull the Max Holloway. She pointed, down at the ground for Rose to stand still and bang. Like, let's stand and bang, which I thought was kind of funny. I thought it was kind of silly.
But can't quite find the uppercut. Yeah, she's begging Rose to stay still. She's like, nope. You gotta.
Like, girl, stop. You ain't Max Holloway. But Rose wasn't trying to hear all that. She hit her with the Nick Diaz, and even Tracy kind of laughed, and they like touched gloves. Like, she was like, all right, like, it's not happening. But she tried it. That was really funny to me. So that fight ends Tracy's 11 fight win streak. Remember, only 5 of those are in the UFC, and those are spread out over like 5 years. And then the rest of those fights were before her time at UFC. But that's a good win streak, 11 fights, but it's done now. But, look at the fighter. Rose is just a better fighter. And I still see that as a step up for Tracy to be fighting better fighters. After the fight, Rose called out for the first ever women's BMF title fight, which the concept of a women's BMF, that is not new. A bunch of women fighters have brought that up by now. I can't remember all who, but I've heard it before, different people calling out for a women's BMF title. And I do remember a reporter asking Dana White, will you ever introduce a women's BMF title? And what is kind of cool about that, I think, is that Dana said that the BMF title is gender neutral, that it can be for a man or a woman. There's no women's BMF title. There's just the BMF title. So that's kind of sick. But even Tracy, just last week, challenged Alexa Grasso for it at the Sphere for the upcoming Mexican Independence Day fight that they were doing at the Sphere. That's ambitious and all, but Tracy would not win a fight against Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso is goated, and I think what everybody would prefer to see at that fight is the third part of the Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko trilogy. Those are fighters that are more suited towards each other at this time. That would make more sense at the Sphere, in my opinion. Which that fight at the Sphere is UFC 306, I believe. And they're calling it UFC Noche because it's September 14th, which is Mexican Independence Day. So that's why all these Mexican fighters are trying to throw their name in the hat. Alexa Grasso is Mexican. Tracy Cortez is Mexican. So that's very cool. But it's just historically and the level of fighter, Valentina and Alexa makes more sense. But I think I should be there as a Mexican who loves UFC. I should be there. Who's fighting at that? I don't even know the card yet. I need to look at that. The Noche UFC fight card at the Sphere will feature 10 fights. There will be a main, co-main, and obviously this card will be very Mexican heavy, is what Dana White said to Pat McAfee. According to MMA Junkie, the following fights are set to take place at the Sphere. Anthony Hernandez versus Michael Pereira. Irene Aldana versus Norma Dermont. That's all I see. And I know there was 2 big leaks supposedly recently. Supposedly. Allegedly. This is just what's online. I'm not being Ariel Helwani. Supposedly, UFC 306 at the Sphere will feature a bantamweight title fight between Sean O'Malley and Merab. But also, this is something to really get excited about, featherweight title fight between Ilya Topuria and Max Holloway. That goes crazy. Wow. It is not reported which of these 2 fights would be the headline. Okay, but none of those is Mexican. I feel like you need a Mexican headliner. Will we have Brandon Moreno on that card? Will we have Raul Rosas? Will we have Alexa Grasso? Alexa, don't answer. Who else is Mexican? I know Paulo Costa likes to say he's Mexican. A few things that I learned at this last weekend's fight, or from this last weekend's fight, just from all the reading I've been doing and whatnot, that I didn't know before is that Tracy Cortez is a bit older than I thought she was. I mean, I know she's been in the game for a while, but I also know that she started when she was 14. But I didn't realize she was 30 just because she looks so young. I thought she was a lot younger than Rose, but when the tail of the tape and that stuff came up, I saw that she was 30 and Rose is 32. So they're very similar in age, but Tracy she looks like she's 24 years old. Good for her. And I also found out that in the post-fight interview that Rose's dream after she retires from fighting is to be a farmer. I know she does gardening and I know she's into all these things, but I didn't know she dead ass wants to be a legit farmer. Now I'm oh my God, girl, I love you even more. MMA and farming, you're on the list with me and Bryce Mitchell. This is what I'm about. This is also my dream. If you listen to last week's episode, I made a bold claim about the newcomer, which at this point, I don't know if her name is Fatima or Fatima. I've heard it 2 different ways. Fatima Klein. I'm going to say Fatima Klein since that's what I heard on my television. I made a bold claim that she would win because I was really excited about her. But I'm still excited about her even though she lost. She was fast. Her fighting was clean. She was punching her way out of the clinch. I feel like one of the reasons she didn't win is because she was just so obviously smaller than Jasmine. She was being overpowered. You could just see with your eyeballs that Jasmine was just so much stronger than her, based mostly on size advantage. Like, I think she moved up a weight class, but you could just tell that even so, like, she's a smaller girl and she's going to fight better, I think, in an even lower weight class. Or with a full camp, because it was super short notice. She's not coming out of a full camp. I mentioned that like Jasmine was, but she was really clean fighter, good fighter, fast, exciting. I think that this fight showed that she belongs in the UFC, and I'm really excited to see how she does in the future after a full camp. She did a really good job staying in the game. She was landing strikes. Even after being down 2 rounds, she was landing a lot. Also, she was fighting at elevation. I'm just going to make excuses for her. I like her fighting. I think she's good. And I think we're just going to see her get better and better. So Jasmine is now on a 2-fight winning streak after winning this fight by decision. And something that was interesting, while they were fighting, the crowd kept chanting USA, USA, USA. And I know Jasmine is Canadian, so I don't know if that's why, or I think the Donald Trump stuff was kind of happening around that same time. I'm not exactly sure, but through that whole fight, specifically that fight, everyone was chanting USA. So I thought that was interesting. We had another nasty cut like we had at 303 on this card. This time it was Dober. He had a medical stoppage, so he lost by TKO because half of his forehead was just split open. I'm not sure which one's worse, the Myra Silva one from 303 or this one. I think this one was even worse. Like, oh, just meat flap of the face. I'm not even going to show it on this podcast, but you could look it up if you're interested. Very disgusting, horrible cut. I feel bad for him, but it makes sense. The fight was stopped. But what a shitty way to lose, you know? Like, you're still fighting. And we have another quick UFC signing from someone that was meant to debut on Contender Series. And now we'll go straight to a debut at UFC 304 card in Manchester. This is actually a long-time internet friend of mine, so I'm excited to see it. It is Alice Ardeline. She's a European MMA fighter who went viral at one point because she had got kicked out of her MMA gyms because she is an OnlyFans creator. And a bunch of the wives of the fighters and stuff complained, even though she wasn't mixing the two. Like, her OF has nothing to do, her fight training, two separate things. And she also is like really big on TikTok for reaction videos. If I'll post one on here, and you guys, a lot of you will recognize her. She just reacts to weird and funny stuff by like bugging her eyes out essentially. And she just went viral for that over and over again. But her and I have been friends online for a while because we had common interests. Like, I'm a Playboy creator and I'm into MMA. So we just align, we chit chat here and there. So I'm really excited for her. I need to send her a message actually. I'm very proud of her. I'm very excited for her. That will be interesting to see. She is a good fighter. And yeah, she does get shamed for the OF game, but you know, it's a great way for a lot of these girls to make money because the men are going to sexualize them or us anyway. So if they're comfortable with that, now if you're not comfortable, don't do that kind. But if you are comfortable with getting that kind of attention, you can make a lot of money. Whereas when you are not at the top of UFC and not even in UFC at all, fighting doesn't pay shit. So, and it's an expensive sport to stay in. I never got a chance to talk about the Nate Diaz and Masvidal boxing fight that I had initially intended that I wanted to go to, and then I just kind of lost interest as the time neared closer, and then I didn't even watch it. I think I started thinking about the way that Nate Diaz was fighting when he fought against Jake Paul, like where he wasn't even trying. I don't know. I was just getting the vibes that like it was going to be like that, like kind of a dud where I wasn't. Full disclosure, I did not watch it at all. And I didn't see any highlights. I could be wrong, but I didn't see any major highlights going so viral that there was like a big, huge moment that I had to see. But I did see that Nate Diaz won. I don't know if it was a good fight. I'm not going to speak on it. I just, for some reason, lost interest by the time it was the day. I didn't care. I didn't care to go. Also, I was salty because they denied my press request. I'm like a reverse Dana White. I'm like, oh, you don't want to give me access? Well, I don't want to talk about it. No, but even if I didn't have access to something, if I was supremely interested, obviously this is my passion, I would still watch it. The whole thing, like from the beginning, it felt a little off-brand, but I was interested just on the strength of who it was. And then I don't know, I stopped caring. Here's my second cat. I have two heartless cats, and her name is Starlight. It was requested as a YouTube comment last week to show my cats on the podcast. That's for you, to the girl who requested that. The big news on that fight today is that the promotion who put on that fight, Fan Mio, which I'd never heard of before anyway, I only started following it because of this fight. Apparently they didn't pay Nate Diaz. They were supposed to pay him $8 or $9 million and they only gave him $1 million. I don't know the tea on that, but it sounds like some drama, and that is attributing to the perception of this being an off-brand promotion. I'll update more about that as I find out. But that's all I know about that fight. Is that I would not want to owe Nate Diaz some money. I woke up at 4:44 a.m. this morning, not on purpose. I set my alarm for sunrise. So I was at like 5:46 a.m. is when sunrise is supposed to hit. I wanted to wake up with the sun. And I just naturally popped up and I asked my Alexa speaker, I don't want to say it too loud because she'll answer. I asked what time it was, and it was 4:44 a.m. on the dot. And I was like, wow, amazing. That's my Instagram name, is Stella K444. And the reason why is because it's my angel number. I think it's a sign. So I was like, okay, this is a sign from God that I need to get my ass up out of bed right now. So I started my day 4:44 a.m., which is goals, but that is unheard of from me. I'm the type of bitch that sleeps till 3 p.m., 2 p.m. You know, I start my day at noon at the earliest, unless I technically have to. Anyway, I woke up at 4:44 a.m. I meditated, I journaled, and then I went for a hike. And all these wonderful things attributed to my later decline in the day, afternoon, where I just went crazy, I think, and just really let this man have it. But that's neither here nor there. The point of me telling you this is that while I was on my hike in the morning, I was listening to Good Guy, Bad Guy, which is DC and Chael Sonnen's podcast. If you don't know, I love that podcast. It's one of my favorite MMA podcasts, even though Chael is yelling the whole time. He has like a yelling podcast. I want to know why he's yelling so much. Also, I thought Chael was Jewish for the longest time, because Chael, that's Hebrew. I found out today, because I had to look it up. This guy is a German Catholic. Well, how the hell are you named Chael? Anyway, it was cracking me up because the way he says Alex Pereira. Now, if you look at it, it looks like, and if you're reading it with English eyes, it looks like Alex Pereira. So I will accept Alex Pereira. If you're Latino, it looks like Alex Pereira. He's Brazilian. So the Brazilian way to pronounce that is Pereira. Alex Pereira. I'll accept any of those because all of that makes sense to me. Alex Pereira, Alex Pereira. Chael Sonnen would not stop saying Alex Pira. He said it about 75 times in the podcast. And Alex Pira, that's not a good Chael Sonnen impression, but I'm not good at impressions. Imagine Chael Sonnen's voice yelling, saying Alex Pira for the whole episode. I was dying. Alex Pira? How did you get Pira? Pira, it sounded like that's how he was saying it. Alex Pira. That's funny. So add that to the list. Alex Pereira, Alex Pereira, and Alex Pira. That's a new one. I was going to say that Sean Strickland has seemed unusually unproblematic lately. Maybe I'm just like immune to him, but it seemed like nothing was really going on. And then as soon as I had wrote that on my list to talk about on the podcast, he threatened that Navy SEAL named Goggins, which I don't really know who he is. I know he's got like 12 million followers. Like, this guy's huge in the social media space for being a motivational speaker. Like, he motivates to get their lives together, to train, to get out of their comfort zone. His thing is like running and changing lives. And he seems to have a really positive influence on the internet. So I'm like, how the hell did Sean get into it with this guy? I just see Sean screaming on the internet, one of his favorite things to do, like, I'll beat your ass. We both live in Vegas. You know where to find me. And it's like, and this Goggins guy's older. And I see him being like, train with me for 3 days and I'll gladly spar you. I'm like, how are you an internet beef with a motivational speaker? Only Sean. And like, I thought Sean is all like pro cops and pro-military and pro-government. Like, I thought these are the type of people he respects. Like, why are you talking about beating this old man's ass who likes to run? I was in the comments. I didn't even bother hitting up Sean about it because it wasn't worth it, you know? Some stuff is just only worth the internet comments. So I was just like, how did this even start?
You guys, let me explain to you why I make fun of David Goggins. He is a fraudulent man. He's an easy target. He is a fraud. Bro, you are so great at running down the street. You're not hard. You're not tough. You run, my man. You do know why I know you're fraudulent? Because as I make fun of you and you post your little TikTok video, I'm a hard man. I'll show up. I'll handle this like a man. No, you won't, dude. I train at Extreme Couture. I'm easy to find. You live in Las Vegas. I live in Las Vegas. Show up. Mitch showed up. Do you not know how to use GPS, my man? Do you not know how to get in your car? I'll tell you what, why don't you jog down? But you won't, dude, because you are a fucking fraud. You go on TikTok and you make these stupid videos. You are a fucking fraud. And that's why I make fun of you. And that's why you will never show up, because I will expose you. I will expose you. So just stay on fucking TikTok and keep fucking running. Or man up and show up, but you won't.
I'm dead. I am dead. And when he said, oh, why don't you just run over here? That is so rude. That was a banger, though. That was funny. Why don't you just run over here? And then, you know, if you're watching Sean's internet presence throughout the day, he goes on to spar. And then he comes back from sparring. So this guy, Sean, he doesn't have the most self-control with just running the mouth, right? He's not going to stop and think about it. If he has something he feels passionate about at the moment, he's just going to say it. So he comes back from sparring and he apologizes. He's like, actually, I feel better now that I sparred. I'm not really that mad about it. Like, Goggins, you're all right with me. I don't remember what he said word for word, but basically he was just like, had his like post-sparring clarity, and it was pretty funny. But at least he doesn't have so much ego that he can't come back and be like, oh, I was the problem in that one. I don't have much going on in my personal life. Well, I did say that I read The Fish for Filth earlier, but it's not worth giving any energy. It was just like pent up frustration, and he's just like, he's a breadcrumber, if you know what that is. And it's my fault for I have attachment issues. It's my fault. Like, any sane person would not still be dealing with this person in any capacity, even as like a friend, an acquaintance. Like, you know, after like some of the behavior that has been displayed, which that should just be like the end of it. But I'm not that good at this. It is so hard for me to like someone. It really is. I don't get attached to people easy. That's why all my relationships are few and far between. And when I do have one, it lasts usually a long time. And then I'll be single for years in between so I can heal. It's just hard for me. Like, I'm not like a jumps into relationships back to back. It is very hard for me to meet someone that I like. And so when I do like open up my heart in that capacity, I really care. I really get attached. So it is hard for me. So it's like, I haven't let this go as easily as I should have, you know, and it doesn't help that he's a breadcrumber, you know, he'll give you just enough to like keep you around, but like not enough of what you deserve. And so I just went crazy today, but that's not really anything going on in my personal life. That was just today. I just like, you know, sent all the paragraphs, did my big one of everything that I ever thought, you know, bad, but all true, all valid. Anyway, but, you know, I did ask Sean Strickland, because he's my friend. If you guys saw a while back, he went to Japan and sparred with one of like their best fighters over there. And I was watching the sparring footage and I'm like, this is cute. So then I lurked him on social media and I think he's hot. I'm going to put his picture in the video so you guys could see it. I thought he was a handsome man and he was a good fighter. And I think he's like a weight class under Sean. He was holding his own in the sparring. Did he get his ass kicked? Yeah, but he was good. And I was like, you know, I'm on the prowl right now. I need a distraction. I need to move on from being treated like dog shit. So I asked Sean, like, give that guy my number. Like, I was asking about him. Is he single? Give him my number. And Sean was being a hater. He said, I'm not giving your number to someone outside of this continent. So, okay, that is valid to an extent. I like long distance. I can travel. Anyway, I don't remember that guy's name. I'm going to look it up so I can publicly make my plea right now on this podcast. Sean could make it so easy for me, but he's a hater. He's a hater. I mean, maybe that guy wouldn't be interested. We don't know. He doesn't know I exist, so how am I going to shoot my shot? He's a Japanese kickboxer. Rukiya? He went hard the whole fight, guys. I hope I'm saying that right. I know that Japanese is like phonetic. Rukiya Anpo. He's a Japanese kickboxer, K1. Rukiya. He might be too small for me. That's what Sean should be concerned about. Not if he's far away. Look, that's not an issue for distance. I want to go to Japan. Okay, let me find a picture. Here he is after he fought with Sean, after he sparred with Sean. I think he's handsome. Rukiya, oh my God, I'm just fucking up already. Rukiya Anpo. Or whatever your name is, guy. Look, if you see this and you're single and you think I'm cute and you want to come to America or have an American visitor, slide into my DMs. It's me shooting my shot. I don't know what else to do. I give up on, I'm not doing the dating apps anymore. They're so trash. Complete garbage. I don't want to get into the amount of garbage I see on there. I just can't do it. It's not for me. I need to like meet either in real life or through like mutual friends or something. Although that was what I did last time and it didn't go very well. But I can't do the apps. The apps, it's just not for me. I can't tell if I have to notice something about someone. I can't tell that from a fucking picture with one line. And they're all insane. Khabib owes $3 million in taxes. He's so real for that. He's just like me for real. I keep seeing that headline everywhere, but I guess the like case against him is progressing. Why doesn't he just pay them? Honestly, he has the money. Just pay it, Khabib. That is a lot, though. Let's see if there's a Khabib taxes up. 3.3 million. Did I say 3 million? It's 3.3. Damn. That's crazy. And Conor McGregor was celebrating about it, apparently. That is so rude. I know they hate each other. They like really hate each other. And I've been seeing more and more footage that proves like how much Khabib actually hated Conor, like audio that we never heard before. I think he like spit on him in the octagon. Like these guys fucking, I guess Conor is happy about that. And to return to my joke that I opened the podcast with about Conor's dick, honestly, isn't that thing out everywhere? Every picture that I see of him, he like makes sure to have his junk out somehow. I don't know how he does it. Like, okay, we get it. You're hung. If that's real, I mean, I've seen it so many times before. I wasn't looking, but it's been put in my face so many times that I get the message loud and clear by now. I can't help but notice. Yes, Conor, you are packing. And I don't know if that's to scale because he's a smaller man, but that thing looks huge. That is an anaconda, but we get it. Why is it out? Like, he'd be trapping. He just opened the OF because you clearly want to show us the whole thing. And I'm sure people would pay for it. I would pay for it just out of nosiness. I'll just like, okay, you want to show it so bad, let me see it. God damn it. That thing is out everywhere. I'm trying to get like Conor McGregor's D. It's everywhere you want to be. On next week's episode, I have a guest co-host that I'm excited to announce. It is my good friend, Ty Emery. And she actually has some connection to my Ultimate Fighter drama. So I wonder if I should discuss, I have to ask her what we should discuss about it. Definitely will not say any names, but I did get a request on the last podcast to get a little more into the tea of that. I don't want to make her uncomfortable though. Like, I don't want to make her be messy. I think she's a little more serious than I am. I'm a fool. So maybe I should just say it here by myself. The Ultimate Fighter. I'm nervous to be messy. Not that I would ever say a name. I'd keep it vague, but I'm sure the internet detectives could figure it out. I'll save it again. And her only connection to it, she's not really connected, but she unknowingly, completely innocently was like a plot point of the drama. I know that's vague, but she, just by existing, accidentally stirred some of this drama up. But I'm really excited for her to co-host the show with me. We talk every day. She's in Dubai right now for a fight camp. She has a BKFC fight coming up. And so I want her to tell all of you guys about that and promote that. But she's just a cool chick. We're very aligned spiritually and the kind of mentality that we have and the things that we're into aside from fighting. But also, obviously, we both love Fight World. And she went viral at her BKFC debut because after she scored a knockout, she flashed her tits to the crowd. That's my kind of girl. We both love like masculinity and monogamy and those sorts of things, and we're both very spiritual. She's the greatest. She's the best. I love her. I'm excited for her fight. I wish I was there once her fights are a little more local to me, or when I get richer, I will be sure to be there every step of the way. That is my girl for life. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to the Sports Bimbo podcast brought to you by the Bespoke Network. You can find me on all socials at Sports Bimbo. And please, please, please give me 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I